Hi, welcome to my talk on CCR. So, what is this about? Well, as much as I'd like this to be about the iconic band CCR, unfortunately that's not the case. I'm today talking about collaborate constructive review. So, the next couple of minutes I'll be explaining to you what I've experienced in my work with Frequentis, what constitutes a good review, what makes a review process smooth, and what I think you could employ in your company. But first, let me give a bit of an example and context on why I think I should be talking to you about reviews. I'm a software and system engineer at Frequentis since 2015, which primarily develops safety-critical communication solutions. Here, my main line of work is actually developing our automated deployment tool with Ansible. And as I'm a developer at heart, I'm also tasked with bringing a software-centric mindset to an otherwise software-lean environment. This means that whenever I have the chance, I employ automatic quality checks to everything that I can. So, among other things that I did in the company are a web-based user interfaces, automated load testing, customer and internal trainings, and last but not least, a Spring Boot-based REST backend. So this range of topics is also why I elected to talk to you about reviews, and not instead of a very fine, detailed technical talk. So, first up, reviews are awesome. Why do I think that? So, there's actually a couple of reasons that I've experienced that makes reviews a very great tool, but in short, I think that ownership transfer, know-how transfer in all directions, a cauldron for smelting and upholding the team's philosophy, and an activity stream for your code base, and last but not least, more eyes, just see more deficiencies is the meat of the game. So first up, ownership transfer. This is important because it allows moving one individual responsibility to the responsibility of the team. While it's still your contribution, at least it allows you to have your team go from this to this. So reviews are also a great place to learn, and that goes in all directions. For example, imagine, hey, this generator function here in JavaScript, that's actually used in a very clever way. I haven't seen that before. Or, yeah, Python has built-in deep copy functions that you might want to use, otherwise you will be in trouble. These are just corny examples, but I fondly look back to the times when I started in our web front-end development, where I was able to pick up common practices and whatever they wanted from me in reviews, learning from other people. And eventually I was able to showcase some stuff on my own. Also, wherever people work together, different opinions are just a fact. That's human nature. But reviews allow you to actually incorporate these different viewpoints into a homogeneous philosophy that you thereafter can then enforce in the individual reviews then. So it's going to stick around and people can point to decisions made in the past as being still relevant for the present. So, activity stream for a code base. What does this mean? It means that basically you are not going to be on point on every change everybody does, but if your colleagues point out crucial changes, you'll at least be able to keep somewhat in track. And I'm pretty sure it beats the alternative as to coming back to code or so your work that you haven't touched before and being wholly unrecognizable. Also, last but not least, while reviews will not find all mistakes, at least reviews will find the mistakes that are coverable by reviews. You would miss them otherwise, so I can highly recommend at least employing some sort of review. To at least have some sort of veneer of objectivity, I also want to highlight some of the other arguments against reviews. At least the three that I found is that reviews take a certain amount of time. Peer pressure from your peers might actually hinder some creativity, and also imbalance in review time may cause real frustration. So it's quite obvious that reviews take time that could otherwise be spent on your main line of work. However, personally, I think this is quite worthwhile, since, at least from my perspective, we're working in a safety-critical environment, and also I'd much rather have a second pair of eyes go over my work, especially if I was working on a very gnarly implementation problem. So peer pressure may hinder creativity. This is especially true if you have people with very strong opinions that have been in the field for a long time. This might be a good or bad thing depending on the actual field that you're working in, but be aware that there are actually things you can do to counteract such problems. You could, for example, implement spikes to investigate new technology avenues or more avenues in general, or you could actually schedule a Christmas sprint where people get to do whatever the heck they like. Ah yes, who hasn't had a time where reviews were the only things you did for weeks and your own work sort of felt deserted by others? I would highly recommend that you identify these issues in your teams and address it in some sort of manner, because otherwise people and the reviews just become blunt. So, after I've convinced you that reviews are awesome, here are the foundations that I think a good review process should incorporate so it makes it smooth and transition well. I would say that tooling is your bread and butter of reviews. I would say that automation allows you to focus on the things that are actually important, and you don't have to repeat yourself as much. And etiquette, as what goes around comes around. So first up we have tooling. Personally, so I think you can imagine that reviewing in Word is nice and all, but at least after the second round of review, nobody has any idea what's going on, and traceability into the past is actually a joke. So as a coder, I get off easily because I can employ a rich set of features that come with code review tools. Personally, things that I look for in such tools are good diff view where I can see the changes that are actually being incorporated into my work, comments where I can actually see what's going on or actually leave remarks that things might need to look different or things should be explained to me in greater detail, task where I can actually force people to change things the way I think they should be changed or that we as a team decided that should be changed, quick navigation, and as I said, traceability in the past so that you still have an idea what's going on for years to come. In our company, we employ a couple of tools actually. We have a Bitbucket on Bitbucket on premise. We have Crucible and we have some Intel proprietary tool. In our daily work, this is how it looks like, and you can see that this highlights some of the key aspects that we've talked about previously. We have a great diff view, we have comments, we have tasks, and we have a great overview of what's going to be changed. You might find yourself in a situation where you are not working with text-based deliverables. However, there's still a way for you to incorporate some of the things that we just talked about by converting intermediate steps if at all possible. For example, in our company, this would mean that we're maintaining a contract documentation that illustrates our entire API and glossary in Markdown and plant UML, which is then ultimately converted into an HTML page for company-wide consumption. This means it allows us to leverage the whole array of code review tools to making the reviews as smooth as possible and ultimately compiling it into a different end product. Since I'm a developer, I'm used to working with computers. I'm also quite used to computers telling me what I actually got wrong. So here is one of the more important insights that I've noticed. If you can automate everything, especially when it comes to reviews, because it allows you to focus on the things that are actually important and not the busy work. And it will also help keep the team overall in line. For example, white spaces or tabs, new lines at the end of the file, or is the copyright header placed where it needs to be? I would highly suggest that you automate these aspects so you don't need to point this out every time you do this, and it allows you to keep the focus on what really needs reviewing. Also, automated quality tests are a boon to reviews because you don't have to go through the tedious work of, for example, checking out code or whatever deliverable it is we're producing and checking certain basic quality metrics, for example, unit tests or whatnot. So use automated tests for that. It keeps your head relatively sane for other stuff. In our company, whenever I would like to do some changes, we're actually having builds being triggered with every commit that I push to a branch. So we can actually see in this case that we have builds running for every commit. And if I do things wrong, it will actually tell me I need to do things differently. Note that also here we are actually preventing changes being incorporated into mainline branches which don't meet certain quality criteria. So there is no arguing with the machine. It just tells you, hey, this does not work. So people just don't argue anymore. And we can, whenever we need to change the rules to suit our needs. Also, I would like to point out that for every commit on our mainline development branch under the automated deployment tool that I've mentioned previously, we're actually triggering a full deployment onto one of our test systems, something that I'm actually proud of. Ah yes, human communication. I'm pretty sure this is known to everybody that this is not the easiest of all topics, but any good communication seminar will probably tell you that feedback is formulated from your perspective. For example, consider this. That's probably not a good way to phrase this. Let's check whether we can make this a bit better. Well, that's still not quite it. But while this is a joke, it also attempts to illustrate that there is a message here that this method has its limits and you need to be careful to compile your message in a way that maximizes the informational content and not the emotional content. Let's see if we can make this a bit better. For example, this won't work. This is a claim to an objective truth, which is probably not what you want because it makes room for discussion very narrow. So you could rephrase this to something like, I thought this through and I think it does not work as we intend. This at least leaves some sort of room for a discussion and makes you more relatable and come off less as a jerk. Another thing you can do is actually provide suggestions how to resolve the issue. This is especially prevalent if you start out and you are the target of a lot of review comments and you don't just quite know the ropes yet. So instead of saying, okay, this is just plain wrong, because then it's up to me to formulate suggestions that you are going to like better, try to incorporate suggestions into your comments so it's actually quite easy to understand what you want from that person. For example, here I'll try to rephrase my message to explicitly point out what I think needs changing and then even provide a suggestion how you could rephrase this appropriately. Other points in terms of etiquette is that you should leave some room for discussion, as I hinted at this earlier, because claiming objective truth is not something you should be doing. It's just not very relatable and a dubious claim at best. Also, written communication leaves out a lot of things that usually come across with speech. For example, intonation is missing, facial expression is missing, so you might actually come across a bit cooler than you intend. Consider the example from previously. Does this make you feel that this message is neutral? Is it slightly hostile? Is it slightly friendly? Hard to tell. Let me read this out for you and you'll see for yourself that this is actually, that the tone matters and you need to take care while phrasing this. For example, I thought this through and I think it does not work as intended. Or, I thought this through and it does not work as I intend. Also, please, for the love of, for anything that's sacred and holy, keep your changes small. So, in short, reviews are awesome. Pick a tooling that you like to work with and reviews are easier. Also, automate as much as you can because it will help you keep focus on what's important and not repeating yourself as much. And also, etiquette matters. It really does. So thanks for listening to my talk on CCR. Have a good one.